quietly in the background, and others keep showing up in the present, whether we mean for them to or not. These were never just about history, they were warnings, and now they feel more familiar than ever. LA Confidential follows 3 LAPD officers, who are all tangled up in a murder case that ends up being about a lot more than the crime itself. Ed Exley wants to prove he can rise through the ranks by doing everything by the book. Bud White believes in force, but only to protect the people no one else will. And Jack Vinson enjoys the attention that comes from looking like a hero, even if his badge has more to do with entertainment than justice. What starts with a shooting at a coffee shop pulls them all into something bigger, an unraveling of prostitution rings, celebrity scandal, internal corruption, and a version of Los Angeles that's more about image than truth. The script wasn't easy to get made. Brian Helgeland had to keep calling and showing up uninvited because no one at the studio wanted to take a chance on him. But when Curtis Hanson agreed to direct, the two of them found a rhythm that worked. Cinematographer Dante Spinati created a soft lighting effect using rows of close-together bulbs, which gave the movie its warm, vintage look. It especially made Kim Basinger's platinum hair glow in a way that made her feel completely pulled from another era. The film earned over $125 million and became a modern noir, without leaning on nostalgia. It told a story about power protecting itself and the silence that comes when everyone's invested in keeping things covered up. The Year of Living Dangerously takes place in Jakarta in the 1960s, during the collapse of President Sukarno's rule. Guy Hamilton is a young Australian journalist who's eager to make his name, but the city he walks into is tense and volatile. He's helped by Billy Kwan, a local photographer who understands the layers of politics and class in ways Guy doesn't yet grasp. Then there's Jill Bryant, working at the British Embassy, who sees where things are headed and knows how dangerous it could become. The film moves through streets full of protests, markets watched by soldiers, and hotel bars where deals are made and trust is rare. It's about ambition, but also about the cost of looking too closely. During filming, things started to mirror the tension on screen. The production team began receiving anonymous threats accusing them of spreading anti-Muslim messages. Eventually, the atmosphere got so tense that government officials stepped in, and the entire shoot had to be relocated to Sydney. The romantic car scene between Gibson and Weaver, which looks calm and intimate, was actually filmed in a cold parking lot, with fires lit around the set just to keep them from freezing. None of it feels exaggerated or overplayed. The story moves carefully, and when the violence comes, it doesn't feel like action, it feels like something inevitable, something that's been building for a long time. Chinatown opens with what looks like a basic case. A private detective named Jake Gittes is hired to look into a husband who might be cheating. Gittes has done this kind of work before, and he knows how to handle clients who lie. But something about this one doesn't add up. The more questions he asks, the deeper he's pulled into a scheme involving the city's water supply, a land grab, and the kind of quiet power that doesn't leave fingerprints. At the center is Evelyn Mulray, who's caught between protecting her daughter and surviving a past that refuses to stay hidden. The story unfolds slowly through awkward conversations, shady land deals, and truths that no one once said out loud. Tension on set was very real. Faye Dunaway, under pressure from director Roman Polanski, and frustrated with the number of takes, once urinated in a cup during a long car shoot, then threw it at him when he kept giving her notes. Jack Nicholson had his own version of stubbornness. If the Lakers were playing, he'd stay in his trailer and refuse to come out. One night during overtime, Polanski tried to break his TV with a mop. Despite all of it, the film became one of the most respected of its time. Its ending doesn't offer resolution, it leaves you sitting in the discomfort, exactly where the story wants you to stay. JFK follows New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison as he tries to piece together what happened the day President Kennedy was killed. He doesn't believe the official story, and the more he looks into it, the more tangled everything becomes. Witnesses change their stories, documents go missing, and every answer opens up more questions. Garrison's case takes him from military insiders to shadowy figures in the intelligence community. What he's really chasing isn't a single person, it's a system that seems designed to hide the truth. The courtroom scenes aren't about winning, they're about showing how little we actually know and how much is being kept from us. Director Oliver Stone didn't stick to the script in the usual way. He kept rewriting scenes while they were being filmed, trying to catch something that felt more honest, more raw. He pushed the actors to improvise, especially in the emotional scenes, and kept the camera rolling through takes that felt chaotic. What came out of that process was something that felt less like a movie and more like a fever dream of history. After it was released, the film caused enough public pressure that Congress passed the JFK Records Act, forcing the government to release documents related to the assassination. That's not something many movies can claim. It didn't offer closure, but it gave people a reason to keep asking questions. No Way Out begins with a Navy officer, Tom Farrell, who gets pulled into a murder investigation that spirals far beyond what it seems. He's having a quiet affair with Susan Atwell, a woman who happens to be romantically involved with the Secretary of Defense. When she turns up dead, the political machine scrambles to cover for the wrong man, and Tom is suddenly in charge of finding a supposed Russian mole who might not even exist. What starts as a basic case becomes a race to clear his own name while avoiding a system that is more interested in closing the case than solving it. Director Roger Donaldson wanted authenticity in small details, and that paid off in strange ways. One of the film's tense airport scenes features a real limo driver the director met on a trip to DC, a man who had stories wild enough to deserve a cameo. In another scene, Farrell is seen smiling in an elevator in a moment that feels oddly genuine. Turns out Donaldson asked co-star Sean Young to do something unexpected during the take, and whatever she did, it worked. The smile stayed in. The film used early computer tech to build a photo composite, which was cutting edge at the time, and added a layer of suspense that felt new. By the time the twist lands, it doesn't feel like a trick. It feels like the story was circling that reveal the whole time. All the President's Men starts with something that seemed small at the time, a break-in at the Democratic National Committee office at the Watergate complex. Bob Woodward, a young reporter at the Washington Post, gets assigned to cover it. He teams up with Carl Bernstein, who's fast-talking and a little chaotic, and together they start pulling threads. What they find is a trail that leads from a handful of burglars to the highest levels of the Nixon White House. They meet sources in parking garages, cross-check names for hours, and write notes by hand just to keep the details straight. The film avoided dramatizing their home lives or adding romance. It stayed close to how the story actually happened, focused, procedural, and full of long silences where people try to decide whether they can trust each other. Screenwriter William Goldman had written sharper dialogue, but much of it was stripped down during rehearsal to keep things honest. Even the way the newsroom looked was a perfect replica of the real Washington post office. Nothing flashy, nothing dressed up, just desks, typewriters, and phones that never stopped ringing. What the film captured best wasn't the scandal, it was the quiet, relentless work it took to uncover it. Cloot begins when a man named Tom Grunman goes missing, and all the police have to go on is a trail of letters he sent to a New York call girl named Bree Daniels. John Klute, a small-town detective, comes to the city to find answers. Bree doesn't want his help. She's tired, guarded, and already being followed by someone she can't identify. But over time, their paths start to tangle. Bree is smart and independent, but she's also deeply isolated. Her therapy sessions reveal a woman trying to survive in a world that takes what it wants and leaves everything else behind. Jane Fonda spent weeks in New York meeting with real sex workers before filming began. She sat in on their conversations, watched their routines, and kept asking questions. She was nervous about taking the role at first, wondering if it clashed with her political views, but ultimately saw it as a chance to play a character with real complexity. Fonda even cut her hair before shooting started, something she said helped her leave behind the image people expected of her. The film doesn't treat Bree as a symbol, it lets her be full of contradictions, tough and scared, sharp and vulnerable, and never tries to fix her. That's part of why it still feels real. The American president follows Andrew Shepard, a widowed president trying to pass a crime bill while quietly falling for a lobbyist named Sidney Ellen Wade. He's a confident leader, but awkward when it comes to dating again, and every move he makes with her becomes part of the public conversation. Their relationship is warm and a little messy, full of quiet dinners and political speeches, all while his approval ratings rise and fall with every tabloid headline. He's trying to hold on to both love and the presidency, but eventually he has to choose which one matters more. The White House set was so detailed that some actors described feeling strangely reverent on it. Every hallway, every chair had been built to mirror the real thing. The crew even consulted longtime White House staff, people who knew what it sounded like when a president walked through the room, or how meals were served behind closed doors. Those little things helped shape a version of political life that felt real without leaning on cynicism. There's no big conspiracy or grand disaster here. It's about how personal and public life blur together when you live at the very center of power.